Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to Power Automate Desktop Training Tutorial. My name is Vishal Bamran, and in our session today, we will continue to learn the Excel actions provided by Power Automate Desktop. The actions that will be covered are finding and replacing cells in Excel worksheet, getting the first free row on a specific column, getting the currently active cell, getting first free column and row from our Excel worksheet, and finally, getting a column name on Excel worksheet. Let's see how we can make use of these actions to play around with the Excel data using Power Automate Desktop. But before starting implementation, I hope you all must have watched my previous videos covering other Excel actions. If not, I would request you all to take some time out and go through all the videos to get a better understanding of all the Excel actions provided by this RPA tool. So let's start with the first action, which is find and replace cells in Excel worksheet. Here, as you can see, we have multiple properties under it. First is Excel instant, second is search mode, then all matches, text to find, text to replace with, match case, match entire cell contents, and search by. I've mentioned the individual descriptions for you all to refer, but not to worry, I'll cover each of them while we implement it in Power Automate Desktop. But before implementation, let me quickly show you our input file. Here, as you can see, there are multiple columns and rows. Let's try finding gmail.com as our text. Let me close this file and let's begin our implementation. Now let's launch our Excel file first using Launch Excel. Here, let's go with the second option, which is opening a following document, and select our first file. You save it, and then let's close this. Save. Now we have an action called find and replace. Drag and drop this action. Your Excel instance variable is already selected. Under search mode, it gives us two options. First is find, and second is find and replace. Let's go with the first option first. Then here we have a third property called all matches. If we enable this, it will find all the possible matches for the specified text. And if we keep it disabled, it will find only the first possible match for the given text. Then another property is text to find. Here we have to enter the text we have to find in this worksheet. Then match case. So if we want to find this specified text by maintaining its case sensitive nature, we can enable this option. The next property is match entire cell contents. So this means if we enable this option, it will find only those cells which contains the specified text only. And if we let this be disabled, it will find for all the cells that will contain the specified text. I hope you are able to understand the difference between enabling and disabling this option. And the last property is search by, which is either rows or by columns. If we go with the first option, that is rows, it will search row by row, that is row 1, row 2, row 3, and so on. And if we go with columns, it will search by columns, that is column 1, 2, 3, and so on. Do notice that if we disable this all matches option, it is giving us the found column index and found row index as the output variable. And if we enable this option, so as I mentioned, it will find all the possible matches. So the output variable is cells, which is a list of all the possible matches. I hope you get it. Let me disable this and go with our next option, which is find and replace. So all of the properties remains the same, except the one which is newly introduced here in this option, which is text to replace with. Here, the text we have entered, that will be used to replace all the matching cells. So for the demonstration purpose, let's go with the first option, which is find. And as we have already discussed, let's find gmail.com. and search by rows. Now, for the first time, we'll let this be disabled and simply save it. Now let's see what is the output. Let me run the flow first. So the execution is started, and once it's complete, then we'll check the variable section to see what is the output. Okay, so the flow execution is complete. As you can see in the variable section, the two variables that were created are found column index and found row index. So we have found column index as 4, which is column T, and then found row index is 2. Now let's see our input file. If we have something which contains gmail.com itself, D2, see here we have sam@gmail.com. Okay, now let me close it and try for other option. This time we'll enable all matches and save it. Do notice now the output variable is a list of cells. Let's run the flow again. The flow execution is complete. Now, as you can see, we have variable cells. Let me open this. Here you can see there are three possible matches. First is at D2, second D4, and then third at D6. Let me open the file for you again. Our three matches were D2, it contains email, D4, it contains again, and then D6. Yes, we have it here as well. See, it is making our job so much easier. Now let's try and see what the second option has to offer. Now, let's say I have to replace all the possible matches of gmail.com with hotmail.com. Okay, let me save it. Click on run. The flow execution is started. And once it completes, we'll check our input file. Execution is complete. Let me open the file for you. Oops, I know what is the mistake that we created here. We didn't save the file. You must be wondering why it didn't save, right? Even I missed it. Let us quickly run this. Okay. Execution is complete. And I've opened the file. Okay. At D2 has been replaced. Same goes for D4 and D6 as well. I hope you all are able to understand the concept and would be able to make use of these actions in your use cases. Now let's move on to our next action, which is get first free row on column from Excel worksheet. So it contains just two properties. First is Excel instance and second is column. Now, as the name suggests, this will help us to find the first available row on the given column. Let's see how to implement this in Power Automate Desktop. But before implementation, let me quickly show you our input file. Okay. Now, as you can see, column A contains row 7, and then from B to E, the data is still row number 6. Let me close this file. Let me disable this action. Under Actions pane, simply search for get first free row on column from Excel worksheet. Drag and drop this action. Excel instance variable is already selected. Under column, let's first see what is the first available row on column A. Now, the output variable is first free row on column. Let's save it and run this file. Once the flow execution is complete, we'll check the variables pane. Okay, so flow execution is complete. As you can see, the output variable first free row on column contains row 8. Now let's change the column letter. Let's make it B and run the file again. Just to highlight, on column B, there were 6 rows. So once the flow execution completes on the variables pane, we'll check the same variable again. Okay, so the execution is complete. Now, as you can see, now the first available row on column B is 7. Now, let's see another action which is similar to this but somewhat different. Get first free column and or row from Excel worksheet. Now, it contains just one property, which is Excel instance. Now, let's see how to implement this in PAD, as well as what is the difference between this action and the first one, which we just saw. Let me disable this. And just below it, we have the action that we want, which is get first free row and column from Excel worksheet. So the Excel instance variable is already selected, and there are two variables produced by this action. The first is first free column, and second is first free row. Let's save this and run. We'll again check the output variables once the execution is complete. Okay, so it is completed. Now, as you can see, the first free column is column 6, and then first free row is row number 8. Now, let me show you the input file. We can quickly verify. Okay, so see, column number 6 is our first free column. And since till row number 7, the data was filled in, row number 8 becomes our first available row. Let me close this file. Now you must be wondering what is the difference between getting the first free row on column and getting the first free column and row from Excel worksheet. Now the difference is in this particular action, it was just finding the first available row on the given column. We also noticed that there was some irregularity in the content of the columns. A column had 7 rows and B column had 6. Accordingly, it was telling us the first available row in their individual columns. Whereas when we use this second action, it took the whole content and accordingly it gave us the first available row and first available column, right? I hope you are able to understand the difference between these two actions. Let's move on to our next action, which is get active cell on Excel worksheet. It contains just one property, which is Excel instance. And there are two output variables. First is active cell column index, and second is active cell row index. Let's see how we can make use of this action in Power Automate Desktop. Let me disable this action. Under Actions pane, search for get active, drag and drop this action. So this variable is already selected, and there are two output variables. Let me save this, and this will help us identify what is the current active cell in our given input file. So I started the flow execution. Okay, so the flow execution is complete, and my current active cell is the column index of it is 3, which is C, and row index is 11, which means C11 is my active cell. Well, it was simple. Let's move on to our last action, which is get column name on Excel worksheet. So it contains just one property, which is column number. And as the name suggests, it just returns the column name, or we can say the column letter, the number that we specify here. Let's see how we can make use of it in Power Automate Desktop. Let me disable this action. Search for get column We'll show some results for you. Drag and drop get column name on Excel worksheet action. And let's see for column number two, save. And let's run this bot. So we'll check the variables pane once the execution is complete. Okay, the execution is complete. And we can see that the column name at column number two is D. Okay, so this marks the end of our module. Thank you so much for watching this video. I would request you all to subscribe my channel for more videos. Also, I have listed down some suggested videos as well as the ones next in line for your ease. Cheers.